Can you restore something that's been fundamentally broken? I spend my evenings asking myself that question, the scent of oil and old metal thick in the air of my garage workshop. Outside, the rain is a steady drumbeat against the windows of our modest craftsman bungalow in this quiet corner of Portland. Or what was our bungalow? Now it's just my bungalow. My name is Ethan. I'm 38, and until recently my life felt like a well-oiled machine, predictable and comforting. Much like the vintage Mustang, I'm currently coaxing back to life, piece by painstaking piece. I'm a technician by trade. I fix things. Engines, wiring, plumbing, anything with a clear problem and a logical solution. Relationships, it turns out, don't fit neatly into that category. Clara and I were married for 10 years. We met at a local fair. She was volunteering at a booth, all vibrant energy and quick laughter, a stark contrast to my quieter, more reserved nature. She was like a splash of bright paint on my carefully primed canvas. She said my steadiness was what she needed, a port in the storm of her somewhat chaotic life. I was drawn to her spontaneity, her ability to make even a trip to the grocery store feel like an adventure. We bought this house 7 years ago, drawn to the mature trees and the quiet streets. It felt like a place where you could put down roots, build something solid. I started my workshop in the detached garage, spending hours out here, finding peace in the tangible progress of bringing something old and worn back to its former glory. Clara drifted between various interests, trying to start an online craft business, getting into photography, joining different clubs, never quite finding her anchor. She was always searching for something, I realize now, something that felt missing. Our life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I'd work, come home, spend time in the garage, we'd have dinner, watch TV. We didn't have kids. It was a mutual decision, or so I thought. Clara said she wasn't ready, and I was content with our quiet life, my projects, and her presence. I was happy. Maybe too happy. Too comfortable. I stopped noticing the subtle shifts, the growing distance, the way her eyes would glaze over when I talked about a tricky wiring problem, or the way she'd retreat into her phone, a glowing rectangle separating us even when we were side by side on the couch. I figured it was just the quiet evolution of a long-term relationship. The comfortable silence of two people who know each other so well they don't need to fill every moment with chatter. I was wrong. It was the silence of two people drifting apart, the quiet creaks of a foundation beginning to crack. The cracks became impossible to ignore when Marcus moved in next door. The old Mrs. Gable had finally moved to assisted living, and suddenly there was a flashy, modern build on the market in our street of older homes. Marcus bought it. He was younger than us, maybe early 30s, with an easy smile and an energy that seemed to vibrate off him. He wasn't just physically fit like Jake from the original story. He had a polished, maybe slightly superficial, charisma. He was a travel blogger, always posting pictures of exotic locations, skydiving, surfing, a life of constant motion and excitement, the polar opposite of my quiet, grounded existence. He fit into the neighborhood like a brightly colored bird in a flock of sparrows. And Clara, my restless Clara, seemed instantly captivated. It started subtly, as these things often do. A wave over the fence. A brief chat while taking out the trash. Then it escalated. Clara started finding reasons to be outside when Marcus was, tending to the flower beds she usually ignored. Taking long walks that somehow always seemed to involve passing his house just as he was coming or going. She'd come back buzzing with a nervous energy, recounting snippets of conversation with him. He was telling her about his travels, about the thrill of spontaneity, about living life without limits. Things that I suppose sounded like music to Clara's ears. I noticed the phone first. It became an extension of her hand. She'd jump if I came into the room unexpectedly while she was using it, quickly flipping the screen down or switching apps. When I asked, she'd give vague answers, just checking the news, looking up recipes. The evasiveness was a new layer in our relationship, a wall rising between us brick by brick. Neighbors started talking. In a quiet suburban street like ours, any deviation from the norm is noticed. Mrs. Gable's house being sold to a young single guy was already buzzworthy. His frequent interactions with one of the married residents became a topic of hushed conversations over hedges and at the community mailbox. Sarah, my oldest friend, lives across town, but she visits sometimes. Even she noticed something was off during a casual dinner one night a few weeks before everything exploded. "Clara seems distracted, huh?" she'd said, swirling her wine. "Sarah is fiercely loyal and doesn't pull punches. She's a successful architect, sharp and observant." I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Just busy, I guess." Sarah raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "Busy with what?" "She seems to be spending a lot of time admiring Marcus's landscaping." I forced a laugh. "He does have a nice lawn." Sarah didn't laugh back. She just gave me a long, steady look that said she saw more than I was admitting, maybe more than I even saw myself yet. The pit in my stomach started small, a pebble, then grew into a heavy stone. I didn't want to believe what I was starting to suspect. Clara and I were solid. We had history. We had our routines. But the evidence, circumstantial as it was, began to pile up. Late-night texts she'd read with a strange expression on her face. Her sudden interest in fitness and hiking, activities Marcus often posted about. The way her eyes would light up when his name came up, a spark I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. I tried to talk to her. Not about Marcus directly, not yet. I tried to talk about us, about feeling disconnected, about wanting to spend more time together, just the two of us. She'd nod, agree in theory, maybe schedule a date night, dinner at a restaurant we'd been to 100 times, or a movie, but her mind wasn't there. She was restless, her gaze constantly flitting elsewhere, her phone always within reach. It felt like trying to catch smoke. The air in the house grew thick with unspoken things. The comfortable silence was replaced by a tense, empty silence. I retreated further into my workshop, the predictable mechanics of the Mustang a balm to my increasingly frayed nerves. Out here, problems had solutions. In the house, everything felt tangled and impossible. Then came the night, everything changed. I came inside from the garage, wiping grease from my hands. The house was quiet, too quiet. Clara wasn't on the couch or in the kitchen. I found her in the spare bedroom, which she used as a makeshift office craft space. She was sitting at the desk, staring at her laptop screen, her shoulders slumped. The light from the screen illuminated her face, and I saw a look of deep confusion, almost despair. "Clara, are you okay?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. She startled, quickly slamming the laptop shut. Her eyes were wide like a trapped animal. "Ethan, you scared me." "Sorry, I just finished up in the garage. Everything all right?" She hesitated, biting her lip. Then she sighed, a long shuddering sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. She nodded slowly. No, it's not. We need to talk." That phrase, it hangs in the air like a death knell for relationships. My stomach plummeted. I braced myself, leaning against the doorframe. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on?" She looked down at her hands, twisting a ring on her finger. "This is hard, Ethan. Really hard." I waited. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Finally she looked up, her eyes pleading. I'm not happy, Ethan. It wasn't what I expected, but it hurt just the same. Not happy? With us? With our life?" She shook her head. "With me. With my life. I feel stuck, like I'm just going through the motions, and lately..." She trailed off, looking away. Here it comes, I thought. The part about Marcus. "Lately?" I prompted, my voice flat. She took a deep breath. "Lately I've been spending a lot of time talking to Marcus. Understatement of the year." "I know," I said. He makes me feel alive, Ethan. He talks about seeing the world, about taking risks, about not settling, and it's made me realize how much I've settled." My jaw tightened. "Settled? You think our marriage is settling?" "No, not like that," she said quickly, though her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "It's just, you're so steady, Ethan. So predictable, and I'm starting to feel like I'm drowning in the predictability. Marcus, he's the opposite of predictable." She finally looked at me, her expression a tangled mess of guilt, confusion, and something that looked like desperate hope. I've developed feelings for him, Ethan. Strong feelings." The world tilted. My ears started ringing. It wasn't just neighborly chats. It wasn't just a crush. "Feelings?" I repeated, the word foreign on my tongue. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. We've been talking a lot, and I feel a connection with him that I haven't felt in I don't know how long." She stood up, wringing her hands. "I know this is awful. I know I've hurt you, but I feel so confused. I don't know what I want. I feel like I need space to figure things out. Space, that's what they call it. A polite word for putting your marriage on pause while you explore whether the grass is greener. Space, I said, my voice dangerously low. What kind of space are we talking about, Clara? She hesitated, looking everywhere but at me. I think I need to leave for a while. Just get away, clear my head. Maybe spend some time with Marcus. See where things go. There it was, the gut punch. Not just feelings, not just space. Leaving, to be with him. The air left my lungs. It felt like she had reached into my chest and ripped out the steady, beating heart of my life. My mind went blank for a second. Then a cold, hard clarity settled over me, sharp as a scalpel. It wasn't confusion she was expressing. It was a choice. A choice to prioritize this new, shiny excitement over the decade we had built. And she wasn't asking for permission. She was announcing her intentions. A strange calm washed over me, the kind that comes when the worst has just happened, and there's nothing left to fear. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. You want to leave. To spend time with Marcus. To see where things go, I repeated, making sure I understood every brutal word. She nodded, her eyes wide and wet. I know it sounds terrible, Ethan, and I'm so sorry, but I don't know how else to figure this out. I feel like I'm at a crossroads, and I need to explore this path before I can know if our path is the right one. Our path, I echoed dryly. You think you can just step off our path, wander down another one for a while, and then step back on if it doesn't work out? No, that's not what I mean, she insisted, though her words rang hollow. I don't want to have regrets. I need to know. Regrets. The word tasted like ash. What about my regrets? The regret of investing 10 years in a marriage with someone who saw it as a path she could just step off of. The regret of not seeing this coming. I looked at her, at the woman I had built my life around, and suddenly she felt like a stranger. She was asking for a temporary leave of absence from our marriage, a trial run with the neighbour, with the implicit assumption that I would be here, waiting if her experiment failed. And in that moment, standing in the doorway of her messy craft room, surrounded by the scent of her perfume and the ghost of shared memories, I knew I couldn't do it. I couldn't be her safety net. I wasn't a backup plan. Okay, I said. The word was quiet, almost a whisper, but it cut through the tension in the room. Clara looked up, surprised. Okay? Yeah, I said, pushing off the doorframe and walking towards the kitchen. Okay, if you need to leave to figure things out, then do it. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My hands were shaking now, the feigned calm dissolving. Thank you, Ethan, she said, her voice laced with relief, though I heard a flicker of surprise too. Maybe she expected me to beg, to fight, to make it harder for her, but I was already done fighting for something she was willing to walk away from so easily. The next few days were a blur. Clara moved quickly, packing a couple of suitcases. She was oddly cheerful, almost excited, talking about needing a change of scenery. She didn't say she was staying with Marcus, but she didn't say she wasn't. It was another layer of evasion, another brick in the wall. She acted as if she was just going on a long vacation, not dismantling our life. When she left, the house fell silent. A heavy, oppressive silence that pressed in on me from all sides. It wasn't just quiet, it felt hollowed out like a shell. Her scent lingered in the air, a cruel reminder. Her favourite mug was by the sink. A pair of her running shoes sat by the front door, ready for a run she wouldn't take from this house. I stood in the living room, looking at the framed wedding photo on the mantelpiece. We looked so happy, so certain. I picked it up, tracing her smiling face with my thumb. It felt like a relic from another lifetime. That night, I didn't go to the workshop. I sat in the darkened house, the rain still falling outside, and let the reality wash over me. My wife had left me, for the neighbour, to figure things out. It sounded absurd, like the plot of a bad movie, but it was my life. The first week was the hardest, the silence was deafening. I'd wake up and instinctively reach for her side of the bed, only to find it empty and cold. I'd make coffee for one, dinner for one. The routines we had built together felt like awkward, ill-fitting clothes. I couldn't bring myself to work on the Mustang. The idea of meticulously putting something back together felt pointless when my own life had just exploded. I called Sarah. I didn't go into all the details at first, just that Clara had left, needed space. Sarah, perceptive as always, knew there was more. When I finally told her about Marcus, about Clara wanting to figure things out by leaving, There was a long silence on the line. Then her voice, firm and laced with indignation. "She did what? Ethan, are you serious? She just walked out to see if she likes the neighbour better. Basically," I mumbled, feeling the familiar ache in my chest. "That's not figuring things out, Ethan. That's treating you like a backup plan, like you're on standby in case her little adventure doesn't pan out." Sarah's bluntness, usually jarring, was a strange comfort. She wasn't sugarcoating it. She was naming it. "I know," I said, the words heavy. "So what are you going to do?" she asked. I hadn't really thought past the initial shock. "I don't know. Wait, I guess. See what she decides." "Wait?" Sarah's voice rose slightly. "Wait for her to maybe decide you're okay after she's tried out someone else?" "Ethan, no. Absolutely not." "But our marriage—" "Your marriage just got put on hold by one person, Ethan, and not in a let's-go-to-therapy way, in a let's-see-if-the-grass-is-greener way. You deserve better than to sit around hoping someone who chose to leave you might decide to come back." She paused. "If she doesn't know your worth, why should you wait for her to maybe figure it out?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. If she doesn't know your worth, why should you wait? It echoed Mr. Davison's quiet wisdom in a different way. Mr. Davison isn't my biological father, but he was my dad's best friend and took me under his wing after Dad passed. He taught me about cars, about patience, about integrity. His workshop, filled with the scent of sawdust and pipe tobacco, was my second home growing up. I called him a couple of days later. He listened patiently as I stumbled through the story, my voice thick with emotion. When I finished, the silence on his end was different from Sarah's indignation. It was deep, thoughtful. He finally said. "Sounds like she's lost her way, son." "She left, Mr. Davison. She just left. A person makes their choices, Ethan," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "And those choices have consequences, for them and for the people around them." He paused. "You can't force someone to see what they have if they're determined to look elsewhere, and you can't build a solid future on a shaky foundation of doubt and exploration." He didn't tell me what to do. He didn't need to. His quiet acceptance of consequences, his belief in building things right, resonated deeply with the part of me that found solace in the predictable mechanics of restoration. You couldn't halfway fix a transmission. You couldn't expect a car to run if you ignored a fundamental problem. And you couldn't expect a marriage to survive when one person had willingly dismantled a core component, trust. I wasn't a backup. I wasn't a project to be put on hold. I was a person, with worth. And my worth wasn't dependent on whether or not Clara decided I was good enough after trying someone else. That night, the heavy silence of the house felt less oppressive and more empty, but with potential. Like a workshop stripped bare, ready for a new project. I walked through the rooms, looking not with sadness, but with a growing sense of detachment. Her things were just things. The memories were just memories. They couldn't hold me hostage. The next morning I called Miss Anya Sharma. Sarah had recommended her. Sharp, no nonsense, and she'll fight for you, Ethan. Making the call felt surreal. I was calling a divorce attorney. It made it real. Miss Sharma's office was downtown Portland, in a modern building that felt 1,000,000 miles away from my quiet suburban street. She was exactly as Sarah described, professional, direct, with kind but sharp eyes. I told her everything, the story tumbling out in a rush of words, about Clara, Marcus, the figuring things out, her leaving. When I finished, she nodded slowly. "Mr. Vance," she said, using my last name, the formality grounding me. "Your wife's actions, while emotionally complex for her, are legally quite clear. Leaving the marital home to pursue a relationship with another individual constitutes abandonment, and depending on the specifics, can certainly be viewed as marital misconduct. The fact that she left you to figure things out with him, that strengthens your position significantly, particularly regarding assets and potential spousal support claims." I hadn't really thought about the legal side. It felt cold, clinical, reducing my broken heart to legal terms. But Miss Sharma wasn't being cold. She was being practical. She was showing me the path forward, a way to navigate the wreckage. "She expects to come back," I said, the words dry. Miss Sharma raised an eyebrow slightly. "Does she? And what do you expect, Mr. Vance?" I didn't hesitate. "I expect to move forward. Without her. I'm not a backup." A faint, approving smile touched Miss Sharma's lips. Then we proceed. We file immediately. While she is still gone, it sends a clear message, filing while she was gone. The thought was both terrifying and incredibly empowering. It wasn't waiting for her to decide my fate. It was taking control of my own. It was me making a choice for myself. Back home, the house still felt quiet, but the emptiness was different now. It wasn't just the absence of Clara, it was the presence of possibility. I went out to the workshop. The Mustang sat there, half-finished, waiting. I looked at the engine, at the tangle of wires and hoses, at the rust on the bodywork. It was a mess. A big, complicated mess. But it was a mess I knew how to fix. Piece by piece. Logically. Tangibly. I picked up a wrench. The familiar weight in my hand was comforting. I started working, losing myself in the process. The hours melted away. I wasn't thinking about Clara or Marcus or the betrayal. I was thinking about torque specifications, about rust converters, about finding that perfect fit. The days turned into weeks. Clara didn't contact me much. A few perfunctory texts, hope you're okay or we'll talk soon, vague and non-committal, confirming that she wasn't torn or conflicted. She was simply elsewhere, exploring her options. It solidified my decision. There was no agonizing over whether I was doing the right thing. She had made the choice for both of us when she walked out the door with her suitcase. Neighbours, of course, noticed. They'd see me working in the garage or coming and going alone. Some would give hesitant, sympathetic nods. Others would subtly try to glean information. I kept it brief. Clara's staying with family for a while. Or later, simply, we're separating. The gossip felt distant, like static. Sarah visited, bringing food and her sharp wit reminding me I wasn't alone. Mr. Davison called, asking about the Mustang, his questions about carburetors and timing belts, a quiet affirmation of continuity in a world that felt shattered. Through the neighborhood grapevine, snippets of information about Clara and Marcus trickled back to me. Someone saw them at a farmer's market in Hillsborough, looking like a couple. Another person mentioned seeing Marcus's flashy car parked in Clara's parents' driveway across town. It confirmed she wasn't exactly clearing her head alone. It stung. A dull ache rather than a sharp pain now. A reminder of the life she had chosen to explore. I felt a flicker of something. Not jealousy, but maybe pity for the shallow nature of what she seemed to be chasing. Marcus, the travel blogger, the man of constant motion. Was he truly capable of providing the depth and stability she claimed to eventually want? I doubted it. He seemed like a temporary thrill, not a lasting connection. As the weeks passed, I got used to the quiet. I started cooking for myself simple, nourishing meals. I rediscovered books I hadn't had time to read. I spent hours in the workshop, making real progress on the Mustang. I wasn't just fixing a car. I was fixing my focus, rebuilding my sense of purpose. The house felt less like a shell and more like my space, filled with the scent of my projects, my coffee, my life. Almost exactly 6 weeks after she left, Clara came back. It was a Tuesday evening. I was in the kitchen, making dinner. I heard a car pull into the driveway. Not my quiet sedan or Mr. Davison's old truck. It was a sleeker, unfamiliar sound. Then the front door opened. She still had a key. She walked in, carrying the same 2 suitcases she'd left with. She looked tired. Not the vibrant, restless Clara who had walked out. Her shoulders seemed less straight. Her smile, when she offered a small, hesitant one, didn't reach her eyes. Her hair wasn't styled with its usual effortless flair. She looked like someone coming home from a long, disappointing trip. "Ethan?" she said, her voice small. I turned from the stove, spatula in hand. I felt nothing. No surge of hope, no rush of anger, just a quiet emptiness where emotion used to be. "Clara," I replied, my voice even, neutral. "Welcome back." She seemed taken aback by my lack of reaction. She set down her suitcases by the door and walked hesitantly into the living room. We should talk," she said, the same phrase she'd used 6 weeks ago, but this time it held none of the desperate energy. It sounded rehearsed. I leaned against the kitchen counter, crossing my arms. "Okay, let's talk." She perched on the edge of the sofa, looking around the room as if seeing it for the first time in years. "The house is quiet," she murmured. "It is," I agreed. She took a deep breath. "Ethan, I messed up. I made a mistake." Here it comes, I thought. The apology tour. "My time away, it gave me perspective," she continued, rushing the words out. "Marcus, he's not what I thought. He's exciting, yes, but it's all surface. There's no depth. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand stability. Commitment. She looked at me, her eyes pleading again, but it felt different this time. Less confused, more calculated. He's not you, Ethan. She paused, waiting for a reaction. I gave none. I realized how much I value what we had, she said, her voice gaining a little more conviction, trying to sound sincere. The stability. The comfort. You. I missed you, Ethan. She stood up, taking a step towards me. I know I hurt you terribly, and I'm so sorry, but I think we can fix this, Ethan. We can work through this. Rebuild. Rebuild. The word she used. Rebuild what? The trust she shattered? The foundation she willingly abandoned? Rebuild, I repeated, my voice still calm, almost detached. Like fixing a car. She frowned slightly, confused by the analogy. What? You can fix a car, I explained, my gaze steady on hers. You can replace parts, weld metal, repaint, but it's still the same car. Our marriage. You didn't just scratch the paint, Clara. You drove it off a cliff. You can't just tow it back and expect it to run like new. Her eyes widened, sensing the shift in my tone, the steel beneath the calm. Ethan, don't say that. We can get therapy. We can talk. We could have, I interrupted, my voice firm now, leaving no room for negotiation. Before you left. Before you decided you needed to explore your options with the neighbour. I took a step towards her, closing the distance slightly. You wanted space to figure things out, to see where things went with Marcus. I gave you that space. I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. She didn't know what was coming, and while you were gone, figuring things out. I paused, letting the weight of the words settle. I figured things out too. Her breath hitched. What do you mean? I realized that I don't want to be a backup plan, Clara. I said it clearly, distinctly, the words feeling powerful and true. I realized that I deserve someone who is all in. Someone who doesn't need to leave the marriage to figure out if they actually want to be in it. I saw the dawning realization in her eyes, the dawning horror. Ethan, no, she whispered. Yes, Clara, I said. While you were gone, I filed for divorce. Her face went slack with shock, then contorted in disbelief. You what? You're kidding. You filed for divorce without even talking to me? We're talking now, I said. And yes, I filed. I've been working with Miss Sharma. The papers have been served. But I came back, she exclaimed, her voice rising, a desperate edge creeping in. I came back because I realized I made a mistake. I want to fix it. Too late, I replied, the finality in my voice absolute. You don't get to walk away, explore other options, and then come back to the comfortable life you left behind just because the other options didn't work out. That's not how it works, Clara. I am not your second choice. I am not a consolation prize. Her face flushed red, a mix of shame and furious indignation. Second choice? Is that what you think this is? I was confused, Ethan. I was lost. I needed time. You needed time to see if Marcus was better, I stated flatly. And when he wasn't, you decided to see if you could still have me. That's the definition of a backup. She opened her mouth to argue, to deny, but no words came out. She glared at me, her eyes blazing, but I held her gaze, unwavering. For the first time, she saw the strength she hadn't realized I possessed. The quiet man she thought was predictable and easily kept on standby had found his voice. You're being cruel, Ethan, she finally spat out, tears of anger streaming down her face. You're throwing away 10 years over one mistake. It wasn't one mistake, Clara. I corrected her, my voice still calm but firm as bedrock. It was a series of choices. You chose to seek excitement outside the marriage. You chose to develop feelings for another man. You chose to leave our home to be with him. Those weren't accidents. They were decisions. And now I'm making mine. She stood there, trembling, the fight draining out of her as she realized I wasn't going to back down. She wasn't going to talk her way out of this. She wasn't going to manipulate me into taking her back. What am I supposed to do now? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, sounding lost and small. I felt a pang of something that might have been pity, but I pushed it down. It wasn't my problem anymore. That's not my concern, Clara, I said, stepping away from the counter. You made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences. She stood there for a long moment, looking utterly defeated. She seemed to want to say something else, but the words wouldn't form. Finally, she turned, picked up her suitcases, and walked out the front door. This time, she didn't have a key. The divorce proceedings went relatively smoothly, thanks to Miss Sharma. Clara initially tried to complicate things, perhaps hoping to drag it out or gain some leverage, but her actions spoke louder than her words. Miss Sharma presented a clear case, highlighting Clara's voluntary departure to pursue another relationship. Clara's claims of needing spousal support, arguing she'd given up potential career paths for the marriage, didn't hold much weight in court given the circumstances of her leaving. We reached a settlement that was fair. She got some of her personal belongings and a modest financial sum, but I kept the house, my workshop, and the majority of my savings. It felt like a fair exchange for the decade of my life and the trust that had been broken. The final hearing was quiet, almost anticlimactic. Sitting in the courtroom, signing the papers that dissolved our marriage felt surreal. I glanced at Clara across the room. She looked pale and drawn, the vibrant energy I had been so drawn to long gone. She signed the papers without a word, her hand trembling slightly. In the hallway outside the courtroom, she stopped me. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely audible. I'm really sorry. For everything." I looked at her, searching for the woman I had loved, the one who brought colour into my life, but she wasn't there anymore. Or maybe she never truly was. All I saw was a stranger facing the consequences of her own choices. "I know," I replied, my voice quiet.